We gather here in and from our ancient old ship meeting house. We gather once again. We gather as a Unitarian Universalist community of faith, affirming the inherent worth and dignity of each person amidst the interdependent web of life that we share. We gather. We gather to lift up our highest of ideals that we might be inspired to live lives of greater service and deeper love. We have gathered once again, and it is good so to be gathered here in this house on this ancestral land of the Massachusetts and other First Nations people. We have gathered, and it is good. This morning is Connie Gorfinkel. Come on up, Connie.
At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Albert Schweitzer.
Connie, would you like to actually light the chalice?
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Connie, and thank you, Albert Schweitzer. The man had some good things to say and an inspiring life that he lived. Our choir has the Sunday off, so we are the choir. I invite you to sing with masks, please. We have become a red zone in Plymouth County. Gather the Spirit, number 347 in our gray hardback hymn books. 347, Gather the Spirit.
With his
We missed the choir, but we sound pretty good, I think. Thank you. Good morning, and a warm welcome to worship in our Old Ship Meeting House. A welcome to old timers, people who've been here for years or decades, and a welcome to newcomers as well. My name is Reverend Ken Reed Brown. My pronouns are he and him. It's good to be with you this morning. If we do have newcomers among us, I would invite you, though surely not require you, to stand and introduce yourself so that we might offer a warmer welcome. Any newcomers or visitors who would like to? Yes.
My name is Karen. I'm from Springfield, Vermont. This is my husband Walter, who's celebrating his ex-birthday today. And he's a docent and lover of meeting houses in any of the comes to the bedrock.
Yes, you have. Well, welcome. Welcome from Vermont. I had a pretty big birthday last year, so I don't know what yours is, but it's okay. We're here. Welcome. Anyone else? Well, we're delighted to have everybody here and hope that if you are new, you will get to know us. We look forward to getting to know you through conversations, and you can further get to know us on our website, oldshipchurch.org, to explore there. A couple of announcements. Our annual meeting, the annual meeting of our congregation is today, right here, and also on Zoom. If you're on Zoom and wish to attend the annual meeting, here's the thing. It's a different link. So log out at the end of the service. The link for the annual meeting is posted on the website. It was in an email sent out yesterday, and I think the day before as well. I'm looking at you on Zoom, people here. So we do hope that you'll attend. Everyone's welcome to attend. Voting members, we've outlined what that means in a variety of emails, will of course be the ones who vote on our budget and a variety of other matters. And finally, a reminder that we are able to make donations each week to our Hingham Food Pantry through the basket in the vestibule as you leave, or during the week. You can bring things during our office hours, 9 to 1, to the Parish House office. I believe here end the announcements, but we do have the opportunity, as we do once a year, to welcome new members among us. Let me say just a few words, and then we'll have Diane Jordan from the Board of Trustees saying some words of welcome. Very simply, I want to affirm that when we welcome, well, any new person just walking through the door for the first time, but certainly a new member who's decided to, as you all have on this list, to join our congregation, to commit yourself, to share in whatever ways you can your resources, your time, and simply your presence. That's the first thing. Your presence enriches us, and we hope that ours will enrich you. Over the course of generations, the many, a dozen or so generations of this congregation, that's how it's worked. The generations come and they go, they overlap. Each new person continues the legacy, adds to the legacy, and I know all of you who have just joined the church to one degree or another. I know you have already enriched and will continue to enrich the life of our congregation. Thank you so very much. Now, Diane Jordan from the board is remote this morning, and I'm going to let everybody see her. I think she's going to be spotlighted up there. Is that right? And we can all see Diane. Diane, thank you for offering some additional words of welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. First, welcome. Welcome and thank you. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, for all of our congregation today, and for those who came here before us, welcome. How wonderful that you were curious enough to take that first step in to explore what Unitarian Universalism at Old Ship brings to our community and the world, and that you liked it and us. You may have found something special here spiritually, something comforting, kindred seekers, kindred doers, something we've all found in our own way. And you found enough so to become an important member of our congregation. to walk with us on our journey, guided by our beautiful Unitarian Universalist principles. Again, welcome. Whatever circumstances or path in life led you to our door, we are so happy that you made it here. My hope for you is that you will find great connections in our and your congregation by meeting new friends, to share your journey, and that you find the spiritual nourishment that is so important to all of us. Welcome, friends.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you. Now, for our Nurturing Community Council, Sharon Pren will come forward and say the names, introduce, and there's a small gift for those of you who are here. Not everyone can be present. At least one is online. But Sharon, I'm going to trade places with you.
Good morning, everyone, and especially to our new members. We have 8 new members this year. I'm going to call your names, and if you are in the meeting house, please come forward one by one. First, we have Bonnie Baines. Ethel Fraga. I believe she's on Zoom.
She's unable to be here.
Unable, okay. Karen Hardesty.
She's on Zoom.
Zoom.
See her in a minute. Here we are.
Welcome. Cindy King.
Also on Zoom, I think.
On Zoom. Welcome. Lila Mercurio.
I think she's busy being a senior in high school.
Okay. Linda and Don Nelson. And Louise Perkins.
How do we welcome everyone? Thank you, Sharon. What gifts to our community from each and every one of you. Thank you. Thank you again, Diane, and thank you, Sharon. We come to our time of sharing joys, sorrows, and concerns. If you are on Zoom, you may type your joy or sorrow into chat, and Daveline will read those shortly. The first candle we light, as we will continue to light it, for the people of Ukraine and for peace. The second candle at the time of this very sad landmark in our shared lives is for the million lives, American lives, lost in the pandemic. And we hold in our hearts as well all those around the globe, many more millions, whose lives have been lost. And Derek Wadman has asked for a candle in recommendation of Nakba Day. This is the word in Arabic, catastrophe, that the Palestinians observed commemorating 1948 when Israel began the process of forcing 1 million to leave their land, and Israel beginning the process of colonialism. And I know not everyone agrees with this word, but it is Derek's word, apartheid, and many do share that notion. But we surely light the candle for all the Palestinians suffering in Israel. Are there others here in the meeting house who would wish to share a joy, a sorrow, or a concern? And I will light a candle as you do. Yes, Corey.
Candle of joy and gratitude. On the way here, my daughter and I saw a man stopping traffic on both sides near World's End, escorting a gigantic snapping turtle across the street. Made me so happy.
Well, good for him. A candle of joy for the fellow escorting a big snapping turtle across a busy road. Yay. Thank you, Corey. Rick. Thank you, Rick. A candle of hope that someday we might wake without the worry of another senseless atrocity. And here we have in mind and heart the 10 who were murdered by clearly a white supremacist in Buffalo in the last 24 hours. Thank you, Rick. And we hold all those who have lost their lives in that event and their families in our hearts. Thank you, Rick. Anyone else in the meeting house? Yes, Louise. A candle of gratitude, Louise, for all those who have welcomed you back to Hingham and to this congregation after 50 years. Welcome back. Yes, Diane. Yeah. A candle of gratitude for attending the Women's March in Duxbury yesterday, and sense of community, the passion, and the cars honking, I hope, with you, not at you, as they passed by. Thank you, Diane. Davelina, are there any on chat, joys or sorrows or concerns?
Yes, Ken, there are several. First of all, a candle from Karen Schneider to remind us of our nocturnal animals and not to use caustic pesticides and insecticides. Secondly, a candle from Brian McPhillips, and I assume also from Janice, a candle of joy for the marriage of their daughter Jennifer, which takes place next weekend. And finally, a candle from Paul Stone for the gift of grace that we've enjoyed over the past 30 years plus with Ken's ministry.
Thank you, Daveline, and thank you, Paul. That's very kind and sweet. And I want to thank Pat, too, for creating this. As you see, the flowers this morning are apparently in some kind of recognition of me and our ministry, our shared ministry, and they are beautiful. Thank you, Pat, and thanks to the Flowers Committee for all the beauty you bring each Sunday to us. Thank you, thank you. Seeing no youth among us, I think we'll move right along rather than saying a farewell to our anthem. Christopher, thank you.
Where all that is growing.
May we enter a time of meditation and prayer and shared silence. May we settle into the present moment, wherever we are, whoever we are, the present moment, the only moment we have. With gratitude for sharing this moment, this hour with one another, here in the meeting house and afar, sharing in spirit. And gratefully aware of the blessing of this time we share, we pray from and to the God of our hearts for blessings. Blessings for family or friends in need of a blessing. Support during a time of trial. Solace in the midst of grief. For all who are in need of love. Blessings most especially this day for those who mourn the loss of dear ones from COVID. Blessings during these days for those caught in the crossfire of war. Blessings. We pray for blessings for all in need of blessing, of love, of compassion and care. In this spirit we pray. As we enter a time of shared silence, may it be a time of healing and renewal. And then together, after our silence, we will sing Spirit of Life, number 123. We enter shared silence. most of you know, each month we donate some of our offering to some important outreach organization or cause. The special plate for the month of May, in which we of course now are, will be going to, as you've been hearing, outright LGBTQ Ukraine Emergency Fund. And this morning, one of our own members, Abby Diamond Kissaday, is going to tell us a little more about that effort. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you. In 1990, Outright Action International was created in New York to advance the solution for lasting legal and social transformation for lesbian, gay, bi, transgender, intersex, and questioning people around the world. In every conflict or humanitarian crisis, the LGBTQ population always faces a little more discrimination, and partly because of real or assumed prejudice against what their gender or identity is. The Outright LGBTQ Emergency Fund was created the same day the war began. They were immediately able to work with their partners in Ukraine and surrounding countries. However, many of the neighboring countries where the refugees are fleeing to have extremely high homophobic and transphobic violence with very few laws to protect them. LGBTQ people need safe shelter where they do not have to worry about being victimized, competent medical care for receiving hormone treatment or medicine for HIV. Men between the ages of 18 and 60 are not permitted to leave the Ukraine country. Trans and non-binary people find this extremely difficult for their IDs gender marking does not match their identity that they believe. Those who are marked as men on their IDs are forced to stay in the country and to be in the military. It's very clear that the LGBTQ organizations both in and the countries surrounding Ukraine need our financial help to help the people. So please give as you are able. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Abby. The need is clear, all too clear. As you know, there are two ways to give to our outreach offering today. The entirety of our plate offering, so any cash left or checks where outreach LGBTQ is indicated in the memo line, but checks made out to Old Ship, all today will go to this important cause. Online, you may, whether you're online right now or those of us going home, through the donate link, the pull-down menu will give you the option to give to our Sunday plate offering to support all of our ministries, but also to this important outreach offering throughout the month of May. Thank you again, Abby, and we give thanks at a distance to all those doing this good and important work. And now our offertory. Christopher, thank you.
Rainbows have nothing.
few words about the reading that Pat will read shortly. The original edition of the book from which Pat will be reading was published in 1964 with the simple title, Why I Am a Unitarian Universalist. I can still picture the book on my parents' bookshelf, because this was one of the inspirations for their joining a Unitarian church, leaving the Presbyterian church of their upbringing and mine up to that point, and joining a Unitarian church in Freeport, Long Island, New York. And the author, Reverend Jack Mendelson, I got to know many years ago. That's its own story. But some of you, a few of you may recall that he, standing right here, delivered what is called the charge to the minister on the occasion of my installation here, those many years ago. Circles are so interesting and wonderful sometimes, aren't they? Pat, come on up.
Our reading this morning is from Being Liberal in an Illiberal Age. Why I Am a Unitarian Universalist by Reverend Jack Mendelson. This was published in 1985. As a Unitarian Universalist, I dedicate my life to the creative religious behavior of seeking persons who learn to live in close touch with their times, who refuse to be psychically numbed by problems of the time. Seeking persons who undertake to resolve problems both within themselves and in the activities of the world. I can best summarize what I believe our liberal religious enterprise is up to with this paraphrase of John Winthrop's sermon to the Puritans as they approached Massachusetts Bay in 1630 aboard the ship Arabella. We must love each other. We must hear one another's burdens. We must not look only on our own things, but also on the things of our sisters, our brothers. We must rejoice together, mourn together, labor, suffer, and overcome together. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Pat. So we often, these days, sing a lot of the new hymns, which are wonderful. I've got some favorites among the old ones, and this is one of them. Number 187 in your hardback book. It sounds along the ages, 187.
It
in singing some of these old hymns, wonderful though they are. I feel like I want to be annotating some of the history because there's so much nuance and some of it's very important. Why I am a Unitarian Universalist. Most Sundays we don't talk terribly explicitly about Unitarian Universalism. We sort of assume it and assume the values, and I speak from those values about matters of the Spirit, about matters of our shared lives. But now and then, I feel it's important to lift up just what our faith is about. And one way to do that is to talk about my own personal experience with it. Now, in a significant way, the answer to why I am a Unitarian Universalist is quite simple. It's because my parents decided to join a Unitarian church in 1961 when I was 10 or 11 years old in Freeport, Long Island. Similar or parable in a way. Why is Old Ship a Unitarian Universalist congregation? Well, it's because our third and fourth ministers, Ebenezer Gay and Henry Ware, moved themselves and the congregation away from the earlier Calvinist theology in the more liberal direction, the Unitarian direction. And further, it's because in 1961, right about the time my family joined a Unitarian church, the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America consolidated, becoming the Unitarian Universalist Association. You will be tested after this, so pay attention. And that made Old Ship a Unitarian Universalist congregation. We didn't let Unitarian go away all on its own. When I arrived, the sign outside still said, First Parish in Hingham, Old Ship Church, Unitarian. We valued that part of our heritage, but then we inherited the beautiful Universalist heritage as well. So back to my religious journey, though, I didn't have to remain a Unitarian Universalist. Many of you have probably left the religion of your upbringing, and some of you maintained the religion of your upbringing by choice once you became adults, either way. So this was a choice that I made as an adult. And why did I make that choice? Do I continue to make that choice? Might have a little to do with an old joke that some of you may recall. A Unitarian Universalist came to a fork in the road. There were two signs. One pointed in one direction to heaven, and the other pointing the other direction was to a discussion about heaven. Which way did the Unitarian Universalists go? You might know the answer or suspect it. And maybe that's because for at least a lot of Unitarian Universalists, maybe not everyone, conversation, a certain kind of conversation is a kind of heaven. But not any sort of conversation, not just one that stays on an intellectual, dry level. That would ultimately not satisfy the spirit or the heart. No. The best conversations engage both head and heart, engage a whole person. So the best conversations connect person to person, whole person to whole person, thou to thou, we might say. So this means that agree or disagree when heartfelt ideas, whether theological or about a social issue, whatever it is, are expressed around a circle, after a while we don't feel that we're speaking to one another, much less at each other, but rather it's as if we experience in that sort of conversation that we are part of one another as we talk. It's what happened to me around seminar tables as a philosophy major at Haverford College a long time ago. It's what's happened for the past 35 years, whether in our parlor across the street or during fellowship hour, so many times with you as the conversation. These days on Zoom, it happens as well. See, for me, a delight in conversations about things that matter. You've heard me use that phrase innumerable times. I used it in my introductory packet when I was a candidate for ministry here. The importance of conversations about things that matter. It's been my mantra from the beginning of my ministry. It's maybe close to the center, anyway, of why I am a Unitarian Universalist, because we encourage conversations about things that matter. And of critical importance, these conversations don't come with some pre-digested conclusion you're going to have to get to at the end. After all your talking, actually, this is the way it is. Not at all. It's the conversation that evokes maybe something different for everyone. No predigested answers. So, for example, we stand beneath the night sky or on a beautiful spring morning in the midst of nature, in the midst of cosmos, right? And no one is telling us that we have to squeeze it all into some particular religious salvation myth or story. Not at all. Or we read an ancient text, whether Bible or Buddha, Quran or Confucius. We are inspired by it, perhaps. Our spirits are lifted, but nobody's telling us we have to believe it in exactly this way or word for word. Not at all. All ways of affirming that we are a religion of the free mind. But the news gets better because we're also a religion of the open heart. In that spirit, it wouldn't be enough if the conversation just stayed in the parlor or coffee hour. The best conversations change lives and maybe help change the world. The best conversations in our congregations lead us back into the rest of our lives as we do our bit, whatever it is, to make a difference, to help heal a hurting, heartbreaking, hurting, sometimes too often unjust world. Often doing so together in community. Diane mentioned going to that rally yesterday. But right here, in community, we share this work, sometimes through a morning offering, sometimes by going out on the street together, whatever it might be. In other words, I've amended over the years my mantra. We have our conversations about things that matter so that we might be better able to lead lives that matter. All of us echoing, as we heard in the reading, the Puritan leader John Winthrop, who enjoined his people to love each other, to share burdens, to mourn and rejoice together. Power of community. So yes, however else we might characterize Unitarian Universalists, we are, I'll say it again, a religion of the free mind and the open heart, open and generous heart, moving us into the wider world. Now, sometimes people think we must have just invented this recently, this thing called Unitarian Universalism. Nothing could be further from the truth. We are part of an ancient lineage. To me, that's important as well. It helps to ground me. It's not just something new, not that something new is bad. There are always new iterations, but no. Our tradition has ancient roots, in some ways easily traced back to Socrates, certainly to Jesus, and including the great religious thinkers, mystics, and social reformers in our own Unitarian and Universalist lineage, such as William Ellery Channing, Unitarian, Hosea Ballou, Universalist, Theodore Parker, Margaret Fuller, Emerson, Julia Ward Howe, Clara Barton, Whitney Young, closer to our own time, Pete Seeger, yes, he was a member of Community Church in New York. Bill Schultz, who preached at my installation right up there when he was president of the UUA, and then went on, in the spirit of everything I'm saying this morning, went on to be president of Amnesty International USA. And in a broader sense, in the spirit of the second part of our Unitarian Universalist principles, you can look them up. The living tradition which we share includes sources of wisdom found in all the religious traditions of humanity. We don't accept it all in literal fashion, but we explore and can be inspired by it all. Sources of religion from all the religions, including as well insights from science. Includes our own insights growing from our personal experiences of transcending mystery and wonder. My goodness. All of which adds to the reasons why I am a Unitarian Universalist, grateful to be part of this ancient tradition within which we are free to draw upon all these sources, ancient and modern, in our quest for meaning, for purpose, for solace, and for inspiration for the work of our hands. Pretty darn good in my book. And if we are indeed interested in helping to make a better world, a more just and peaceful world, well, though there's no way to measure the difference that a single person can make, or that a community, a modest congregation-sized congregation can make, or small denomination makes. We should, in the spirit of Margaret Mead, many of you know the words, Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. And she went on, if you know these words, you can say it with me. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Where else, after all, would change begin than with a small group? Where else, for example, but at Highlander Folk School in the 1960s, that trained the likes of Rosa Parks? Where else but in Ralph Waldo Emerson's living room, or Thoreau's cabin? Not just high-flown ideas, but talking about abolition and then acting on what they talked about. Where else but in Faneuil Hall, which ought to be renamed someday, in the company of Sam Adams and others? Where else? Or looking quite further back into the past, where else but in the streets of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago? Where else 2,500 years ago but in Deer Park, where Siddhartha Gautama the Buddha gave his first sermon? So maybe, too, where else but here, in this community and communities like it with which we are linked? Never doubt. After all, in a world of impending climate, more than impending climate disaster, in a time during which our fragile democracy is under threat, which hard-won rights are under threat, whether voting rights, reproductive rights, trans rights, and gay rights, marriage rights are all under threat. In these times during which reasoned debate is all too rare, what could matter more than a tradition that affirms reason, that reason freely exercised must be brought to bear on the issues of the day? And in a world sometimes so heartless, what could matter more than a tradition of open and overflowing heart that reaches out to touch lives regardless of creed or background or faith, and that seeks to speak on behalf, as best we can, of those whose voices are too often ignored? And in a world still racked by violence and war and unsustainable ways of living, what could matter more than a tradition and a community of faith which lifts up the possibility of another way of living on the planet than war and violence, another way on our planet other than the unbridled and unsustainable exploitation of resources, another way rooted, as our seventh principle puts it, in our knowledge, our viscerally felt knowledge that we are part of one interdependent web of life. Well, I can go on, but in short, what could matter more than seeking to nourish the spirit of each and all who walk through these doors, so that together we might better be able to help heal the world. I wouldn't have committed my life to Unitarian Universalism or to this ministry here with you in the past 35 years, the people of First Parish and Hingham Old Ship Church, if I didn't believe that our faith mattered, or if I believed that it only had personal inward meaning. It does have that, but it has so much more. No. Now, I will soon be passing the baton, as you know, passing the baton of ordained ministry here at Old Ship for all ministries. But I'll be passing the baton to a successor. But to mix metaphors, I know that you here will keep the flame of our faith brightly lit and shining brightly for all to see and to be guided by as you walk together into the paths of the next era of this venerable congregation. And finally, though we might not have agreed with Puritan John Winthrop about much theologically, and indeed our first minister, my ancestor, and as it turned out, Peter Hobart, didn't agree with Winthrop about lots of other things. But I expect we all do share Winthrop's affirmation that we must rejoice together, mourn together, labor, suffer, and overcome together. May it always, always be so. And amen. These flames were lit with care in our hearts, with love, and kindness. We know that the flames, though easily extinguished, represent the love and the care and the kindness which cannot be extinguished. We carry those qualities in our hearts and lives. And though I can easily extinguish the flame of our faith, may we carry our faith with us in our hearts and in our lives every day in every way. Our closing hymn, number 1028, in our softback teal-colored hymn book, is The Fire of Commitment. We don't sing this too often, but please do your best to sing it as if it's your favorite song from way back when. Diane says it is her favorite, so she'll lead. Want to come up here, Diane? She will lead the way with singing with spirit, as Christopher and I will as well. 1028, The Fire of Commitment. The fire, the flame of our commitment in our hearts and in our lives, blessing our families, our friends, our communities, our world with our love, with our passion, with our care and our kindness. May it ever be so. Blessed be, and amen.